Is multimedia ready? Multimedia is ready. All right, we've got our afternoon session. We've got three this afternoon. We're going to start with Nicole, then Ava, and Brian. So Nicole is first. She's got a great topic. There's this tension between economic success and development and culture in Bali, and it's you can see it when you're there. And so I liked her topic. I like talking about it with her. This is Nicole. These are her words of acknowledgement. She says, "I would like to thank God, my parents, my advisor, Miss Lita, and all the teachers who helped me throughout this process, and my friends who helped create my title the way it is now." And her title is Paradise Lost. Gentrification serves as a threat to Bali's sustainability. Give me just a second to start the timer, and then I'll tell you when you can start. All right, you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. In the early morning, as the sun rises, rooster crow and the quiet rustling rice field shimmers against the soft blue sky. Wayan, a farmer, follows a very simple morning routine, either planting or harvesting his family's crops, just as his father taught him. For centuries, this is what his family called home. But these unchanged centuries are about to be changed in decades. One morning, Wayan wakes up to find that his one green emerald rice field have turned into concrete gray. For sale signs loom like tombstone everywhere, and he stares into the shining, shimmering chemical blue of an infinity pool. This is where his village, filled with his childhood, has turned into something rebranded. The traditional village of him is being cleared away to make a new room for a playground. For generations, this island's identity, once carved with tradition, today it is being rebranded for the highest bidder. This is the danger of gentrification. If we keep pushing local culture aside for these luxury villas, we'll be left with a theme park that looks just like everywhere else. If we don't protect the community over the capital, the island identity won't just change, but it will disappear. Bali is known as one of the most famous and popular destinations for both tourists, foreigner, and domestic tourists, due to its unique combination of natural beauty, culture, and tradition. The arrival of the Dutch colonial rule in the early 20th century marked the beginning of Bali integration into global network, promoting Bali as an exotic cultural destination, introducing Western artistic taste. This then laid the foundation for Bali global connectivity. Development was first concentrated in Kuta and Sanur, and as tourism expanded significantly during these decades, foreigners started settling permanently. Investors transformed local villages into high-end tourist development, driving up property prices and rising rents. Moreover, due to social media, Bali gained more popularity, and areas like Canggu and Ubud started to be gentrified in the 2010. Cultural practices and values are slowly getting forgotten in Bali itself. Rice paddies are vanishing, beaches are contaminated with waste, and forests are being cut down. Bali itself has lost thousands of hectares of agricultural land due to tourism expansion, including over 6,500 hectares in the recent years. After COVID-19 caused tourism to collapse by 83%, the industry rebounded sharply in 2023, with millions of international and domestic visitors returning to the island for a total of 15 million visitors. In the recent years, the rapid expansion of villas, cafes, resorts, and clubs in Bali has raised concern over environmental degradation, cultural commodification, and the loss of agricultural land. The traditional image of Bali is slowly being replaced by something much more transactional and commercial. Thus, gentrification describes the process where wealthier individuals move into a lower income neighborhood, leading to property renovation, increased property value, and rising rents. The rent gap theory mentioned that gentrification happens when the current value of a property is much lower than the profit it could make if it were to be rebuilt. Over the years, Bali has undergone rapid transformation, and while modernization is viewed as a sign of progress, its negative impact on the locals are frequently ignored. If development continues unchecked, Bali will truly lose its unique cultural identity. This transformation then raises the question of what remains of Bali authenticity. And with that, gentrification should stop spreading on the island for three main reasons: negative impact on the local people, destruction of cultural identity and tradition, and the damage to the environment. First of all, gentrification increases the cost of living and creates economic disadvantages. As areas in Bali started to developing, the cost of land rose sharply, making it difficult for both locals to live comfortably. The rapid rise in land prices has caused the marginalization of the local communities and the displacement of indigenous residents in several regions of Bali. Bali itself has lost thousands of hectares of farmland and agricultural land starting from the early 2000s, primarily converted into villas, resorts, and even private properties. Land prices have skyrocketed, increasing up to 400 till 600% from the year 2010, pushing prices beyond what is affordable for the local. In Denpasar, prices can exceed 1 billion rupiah per 100 square meter, particularly in areas like Canggu and its surrounding are one of the leading areas for conversion, with about 70% of this new villa being foreign funded. Property ownership has become an impossible dream. Balinese families are priced out of their own homes. Secondly, the rise in cost and pressure on the low-income locals in Bali leads to an economic gap. As the daily cost in Bali rises due to investment, the local does not keep pace with inflation. While foreign workers earn an average of 26 to 60 million rupiah per month, the locals earn way less, only 3 to 4 million rupiah per month, giving this foreigner advantages in land markets. As locals are being pushed into lower-paying frontline jobs, outsiders will fill in the managerial position, leaving the economy vulnerable to the forces of global capital. As income growth increased 27% since 2015, its property prices surged 80 to 200%, resulting in these huge gaps every year, with around 51 of this tourism revenue leaking out of the island, flowing instead into Australia, London, or even Russian investors. In places like Canggu and Uluwatu, rapid development has sent the cost of living spiraling. Groceries are up to 50% and transport are up to 40%, leaving Balinese local to bear the burden of heavy inflated prices. Furthermore, this massive development would lead to an increase in local strain and congestion burdens. The island has surpassed its carrying capacity, meaning there are more people and cars than the infrastructure can handle, creating a direct financial losses. The system failure was most visible on December 29, 2023. You could imagine the chaos: 70,000 passengers and 41,000 vehicles trying to move all at once. The island didn't just slow down, but it's paralyzed. Efficiency dropped, fuel costs spiked, and the price of doing business in the island has climbed overnight. And because of this overlap, logistics are failing. Waiting time have surged up to 56%, which means that logistic companies are facing delivery delays, and ride-hailing drivers consume more fuel while earning less per hour. In the end, this constant traffic creates a heavy financial burden. It makes our current tourism model both unfair and unsustainable for the people who call Bali their home. Expanding my first argument, gentrification contributes to the cultural and traditional values being forgotten and declining. Modernization is weakening Balinese tradition and cultural system. Trihita Karana. Once the sacred balance between humanity, nature, and the divine is the foundation of Balinese life. Look at the Subak system. When development severs a single canal, it triggers a domino effect that paralyzes tradition, shattering the 210-day ritual calendar, causing ancient tradition to lose their spiritual meaning. These cultural practices are increasingly under pressure as long-term exposure to tourism and development gradually reshape and challenges the preservation of cultural identity. Today, modern development has claimed 348 hectares of land for new construction, with up to 70% of this building ignoring traditional architectural guideline, replacing local style with a more globalized and modern design. Even the most traditional Pasar Badung has replaced their narrow, ground-level lanes with escalator and even elevator. This more organized layout reduces the spontaneous social talk that used to reinforce local identity. Secondly, tourism contributes to the exploitation and distortion of Balinese culture. The volume of visitors forces culture to keep pace with demand. In just 7 years, international arrival more than doubled, reaching over 6 million. And today, we welcome 10 more million from across Indonesia. But as we pave over South Bali to build infrastructure, a dangerous shift is happening. Our heritage is no longer being lived, but it is being marketed. The increasing lack of cultural understanding has led into frequent violation of Balinese value, exemplified by the rising number of incidents in areas like Uluwatu and Besaki, where tourists ignore dress codes and local ethics. Between January and July 2025, Bali saw over 2,600 deportation and 4,300 formal complaints filed against these tourists, reflecting a surge in cultural friction. Even sacred rituals are being shortened to fit tourist needs. The Kachak dance at Uluwatu, once a sacred spiritual ritual, is now performed daily at sunset for hundreds of tourists and is adjusted for entertainment values. Not just ritual, sacred items like barong and rangsa, which represent cosmic balance, are now being mass-produced. By reshaping tradition to meet external expectation, Bali risks turning its deep heritage into a shallow stage experience for the global market. The third reason, global media popular culture overshadow local tradition. Global media promote a standardized cultural content, and we're being flooded by this copy-paste culture. When a global brand becomes a new place to hang out, local spots and traditional arts get pushed to the side, struggling to compete with a standardized world that values a global brand over a Balinese soul. Bali Masyarakat Adat society used to be built on traditional connection, and technology and media are changing these rules. Digital culture is replacing our local connection and our language, especially among the younger member of the community. And now social media have changed everything. Apps like Instagram and TikTok have turned our home into a trending destination, shifting tradition into another global aesthetic trend. With community participation at only 25%, it's clear we're choosing the aesthetic over our actual identity. Lastly, gentrification must stop its spread because it causes significant harm to the surrounding environment. Bali is suffering from the disruption of green spaces and land agriculture, where the conversion of land to commercial hubs happen at an alarming rate. Bali has lost 6,500 hectares between 2019 and 2024, declining 9% of its productivity. And the most severely impacted by land conversion is Denpasar, which experiences a decline of rice field by 38%. And this creates a cycle where environmental damage and economy pressure make each other worse, ultimately threatening in a long-term agricultural stability, food security, and the preservation of Bali traditional farming culture. The danger isn't just the land that is built on, but what happened to the land around it. Additionally, gentrification increases ecological collapse and disaster risk. As the degradation of the environment increases, the island loses its ability to manage environmental stress, leading to natural disaster. Starting from Bali's coast, tourism leaves behind about 1,200 tons of trash every single day. In places like Kuta and Lijian, 40% of the waste pollutes the sea's habitat. Think about this creature who choke on our plastic waste. The crisis then stretches upland areas with over 2,000 hectares being cleared, hundreds of tons of soil lost, and destroying native species habitat, leaving the area moderate to high risk for landslide and flood. This came to a breaking point on September 2025, when one of the worst floods in Bali history happened. 17 people lost their life, dozens of more went missing, and over 25 billion rupiah in property was simply washed away. Essentially, the more Bali developed for tourists, the less it can protect its people from the element. Finally, with all the pollutants combined, it increases carbon emission and intensifies climate stress. The tourism sector is now the largest contributor to our emission, responsible for 64%. This emission triggered climate change, where Bali itself experiences the urban heat island effect. In cities like Denpasar, we're building heat trap of concrete and asphalt that chokes us with heat. Because of this, urban temperatures are rising nearly twice as fast. A huge portion come from transportation, where private vehicle causes 70% of transport emission and public only contributes around 2%. Hotels, villas, and malls are pumping out massive amount of carbon, mostly just from the energy and gas needed to keep up with demand. By swapping agricultural land, gentrification not only make urban areas hotter, but it also break the island climate balance, threatening Bali's future. Now, nonetheless, some view gentrification as beneficial as it upgrades the island of Bali, changing the island for the better. And while it is true that tourism has created jobs for local residents, reduced travel time, and improved connectivity and services, however, as Bali developed, these benefits are unevenly distributed, with gentrification often prioritizing tourists over and investor over local needs. In many tourism centers, like Canggu and Ubud, rapid development has caused land prices and shifted land ownership and reduced the access of natural resources to local communities. Locals are being priced out, while the profits flow straight to the investor. Massive development bias is happening, focusing only on tourist areas. Furthermore, some would argue that Bali disasters are just a failure of planning, but the truth is, a good governance cannot override the law of ecology. In districts like Singaraja, where 35% of the land is now in a high-risk flood zone, the damage is already done. No amount of better planning can fix a landscape once it's being paved over. By concentrating heavy infrastructure along shorelines and volcanic slopes, it has created an inherent vulnerability that no regulation can mitigate. The island's natural ability to absorb shock proved that the crisis isn't just about the land that is built on, but instead the fact that we have exceeded the island's physical capacity to survive. Throughout the speech, we have examined that gentrification and tourism growth does help bring economic visibility and global recognition, but they often mask a more troubling reality for the island. Recognizing that gentrification threatens Bali people, tourism growth and investment have displaced local families and replaced long-established communities with commercial development. These impacts go beyond physical changes, straining natural resources, increasing waste and pollution, and overwhelming local system, ultimately damaging the ecosystem. The soul of Bali, its culture, rhythm, and identity slowly fades. We often celebrate growth, right? New building, busy streets, and a bustling businesses showing a sign of success. But then how often do we stop and ask ourselves, what are we losing along the way? Nature, green spaces, and the balance that once sustained communities slowly disappear without us noticing. Real progress is not talking about how much we build. Instead, it's about what we protect while we grow. Now you might ask, what can we do? We are just citizens, but yet we do have a vital role. We must support local sustainable regulation and stay mindful of our own footprints. Choose eco-friendly practices and support local development, because one small act can start a wave of changes. Because after all, progress only matters if we can keep a future that can be sustained. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Good job. Our panelists today are Ms. Yohan and Mr. Abed. Let me give the microphone to Ms. Yohan first.
Thank you. Wait. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Miss.
How does it feel now?
I still need to handle the panelists, so
Not yet done. So still nervous?
and not really.
No.
I can manage it.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I've always remembered you as a hardworking student. Even though you were still little at the time, but I remember you are very hardworking. You push yourself to do your best, and I honestly am interested in your topic. So I chose this topic not just because of my schedule, but also because I'm glad that somebody brought this up.
Yeah.
Good. Some of the positive things, positive feedback for you, first of all, is I would like to comment on your clarity. I
Okay.
literally understand what you're saying from the beginning until the end of your presentation without having to concentrate a lot. So the clarity of your pronunciation, the way you brought up your words, the way you say them, very clear and easy to understand. So I think that's really good.
Okay.
You're very nervous. I mean, it's perfectly understandable, nervous and stuff, but I think you did it very well.
Thank you, Miss.
And the topic itself is also very good. It's very relatable. It's a very famous tourism place, area that we go to, very famous. And I agree with you. I think Bali has changed. I'm a frequent visitor. But I love going there, and I love going to the non-touristy places actually to avoid the crowd. But I must admit that it has changed.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. One of the big impact of these changes is caused by gentrification. So let me start with a quite personal question.
Okay.
Is there any particular personal reason why you chose this topic?
Okay, so first of all, I've been going to Bali like once a year, almost every year. Yeah. And then like after the end of COVID, when I went to Canggu to eat in this place, like the surrounding are all still rice fields and paddies. And like just last month when I came back to the place, it's gone. Like all the fields are gone. It's changed into like new cafes and restaurants. So I think it's like concerning.
Concerning. Yeah, I agree with you. So that's the reason why you chose
Yeah.
this topic. So from your research, do you think all these changes, which sadly a lot of negative changes, only caused by gentrification, including the cultural shift, the local being pushed over? Do you think gentrification is the only reason causing this?
Okay, gentrification is one of the reasons, but it also leads to over-tourism because this over-tourism are exploiting the traditional culture and also the local people. And well, gentrification plays a part of it. But the government also should help gentrification so that it will stop spreading on the island. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can understand where you're going. So you mentioned one of the examples of an incident happening in Besaki.
Yeah, where
think-
tourists like
right.
ignore.
All
Trust.
the
Yeah.
the things that they should or should not do.
Yeah.
And that's not the only example.
That's not the only example.
Yeah, right. Do you think, based on your research, do you think that's caused by gentrification or over tourism, or misbehaved tourists?
Okay, so I think like these individuals can only be caused by gentrification, but gentrification plays a part because it leads to like various of tourists coming to the island, and this leads to back again over tourism and creates tourists that they just play a part. Oh, I can do whatever I want. Yeah. So I think.
Which one do you think happens first, the over tourism first or the gentrification first?
First of all, I think it kind of come hand in hand, but with over tourism coming first, it definitely leads to gentrification. So with over tourism, it will create gentrification. So it's like bonded. Yeah.
Okay. I got a question that related to your paper, but have you heard that the over tourism happens because of the bounce back after the pandemic?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Do you think that plays a role in the over tourism and gentrification in Bali?
Yes, it of course plays a role because before COVID, I don't think the massive development happening is as much as what's happening right now. So after COVID dimmed down, I think everyone is like very interested in Bali because they think it's a good place for investment. So yeah, COVID plays a big role for that.
Investment, and compared to other countries, maybe it's cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
with
right.
the rupiah and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Um, so in your paper, you discuss the influence of globalization, social media on Balinese younger generation.
Yes.
Now, do you think, is there a way for the Balinese younger generation to preserve, to keep their cultural identity while, still following the trend, the modernization?
Yes, there's definitely a way because this child should be educated to know how important it is to have their culture safe, and the government can help implement that by giving them the education that a community should stand strong within each other. And while modernization plays a factor that uh, trending things are happening, I think it's important for them to know because we cannot just live in like rural areas
Yeah.
and like not understanding what's happening. So I think education of like how important communities is with like also the fact of trend can help each other.
Yeah, and it can even boost the tourism there too, right?
Yeah,
Even though it's
right.
a lot now.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my last question, and I'm
Okay.
gonna go back to the tourism part. So
Yeah, my bad.
yeah, I think you can answer this. I like your paper really. It's very clear and complete. In your opinion, is how, how do you think Balinese tourism should look like with their progress and modernization, but still balance with their cultural values? Because you know what? I think tourism plays an important role for
Yeah.
Bali. It provides food in many of the people's tables, right? And to be honest with you, it also promotes its cultural activities. When I went to Ubud, I always visited the place where they have the dance. And do you know that the only Indonesians watching the dance was me, my friend, and my husband? There were only three of us. And even the other tourist says, you will be the only Indonesians watching the dance. So actually, tourism itself, it promotes Balinese culture, not for the local, unfortunately. So if you can describe, like, this is the balanced picture of modernization of Bali, but still preserving its cultural values, how do you think it should look like?
Okay, so having modernization with like traditional
Yeah,
coming
traditional
together.
values, and still have tourists coming, but still the locals are not being pushed away.
Okay, so first of all, I would support UMKM, where local stores are making the island a better economy rather than giving everything to this investor. But also, without investor, Bali will not also be a place. So we should maintain this international and traditional. For example, when we build a cafes, probably we could have foreign investor, but at the same time, it shouldn't really destroy rice paddies. So we could use some percent of these fields on building cafe, but it also will bring tourism to know that, oh, Bali is a very interesting place for rice fields and paddies, so it balances each other. Yeah,
Who do you think play a big role in creating this balanced system?
might be what? Sorry.
Have a big role
Ah,
in creating this balanced system.
Of course, it should be the government because the government does have a vital role in creating Bali sustainable and having a good impact on the locals. So government should be the one
Okay.
doing it.
And the people too, obviously, right?
Yeah, and the locals supporting the government
Yeah.
regulation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your answers too.
All
Wei?
right, we need to move to Mr. Abed. Go ahead.
Okay,
Okay. Hi, Nicole.
hi, sir.
Great presentations. I think your delivery part, your voice is really good. Like Miss Yohan, I think it's really easy to understand you.
Thank you.
For your speech. Well, Yeah, let's get into the questions right away. Well, I have two follow-up questions from Miss Yohan. Yeah, the first one is about the Besaki case. I
Yeah.
think I would disagree with you when you say that gentrification plays part on that case. Because
Okay.
do you remember what happened in Japan recently when Indonesian tourists like pulling and shaking sakura trees,
Oh
so
yeah, I heard the
they
case.
get a better picture. You know that case, right?
Yeah.
That's not cause of gentrification, I think. That's misbehaving of a tourist. I think
Okay.
that's also the same thing with what happened in Besaki. So I would disagree with you if you say that gentrification plays part on that case. Yeah. So what do you respond to that?
Okay, so I'm not saying that it plays a huge part of a role, but it did plays a part. Because with this gentrification over tourism, it will create a misbehaved tourists, but it also comes from their individual mentality. So I'm saying that with this overcrowding places, they wouldn't know that it's very impactful on what they did. So yeah.
Thank you. And then the second question to follow up with Ms. Yuan's also, like, have you researched, is there any government regulations that controls about the investment and the development in Bali, now, or is there recent?
There is already government regulation, but like this government, it's hard to say it. Like this government will take corrupt. I could say that. So even though with this government regulation, they will.
Regardless of how the government
Yeah.
acts, but I'm just wondering to know, like, what is the regulation? Instead of whether it's implemented or not, yeah. What is the regulation of Bali's government in investing and developing and maybe like removing paddy fields and making a building? What is the regulation?
Okay, so first of all, the regulation is supposedly this investor should not. The hak milik belongs to Indonesian, and then like you aren't allowed to have like you have to have an approval of PBG Airbnb. Like you have to have the approval, and then after that, like from like shifting paper laws into like a more digital enforcement. That is like one of the regulations.
So can you explain the singkatan that you just mentioned earlier?
Okay, so first of all, the government actually doesn't allow this investor to have the land, but then the locals are the one who sell the land, and the government kind of have hard things to deal with it. And then second of all, the government has already prepared like taxes for them, so that it will be harder for them to invest there.
Okay. So is this also the reason why you write? Okay, that's actually lead to the next question, yeah. I know that actually based on Indonesian's law, expatriates cannot buy land
Right.
in Indonesia.
Yes.
But I think there are several times you mentioned in your paper that foreigners buy land. Can you explain that?
Okay, so for that, this foreigner can not actually have the hak milik, but what can this foreigner do is they have like this PMA, which like give them like the 80 years right to control this land while the land still belong to this local. So they use their name and use the land for investing while it's not actually legal. Yeah.
So perhaps the right term is not purchasing land, yeah. Perhaps the right term is long-term renting or long-term sewa gitu ya.
Yeah.
Lease,
Lease, hak
long-term
sewa.
lease, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I'm a kind of person who pay attention to details. When
Okay,
you say
okay.
that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's
When you say
okay.
that when you write that foreigner can buy land, it's like, what? They can't buy land. They can lease it for long term. You're right. So perhaps if you want to revise,
Yeah.
if there is a revision part, maybe
Okay.
you, instead of writing they buy the land, you can like change it into like
Yeah,
long
okay.
term rent.
I'll take
Yeah.
the advice. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Okay, and then yeah, so like Miss Yuan said, I think gentrifications also plays role in development, yeah, in increasing the tourism area, yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know that actually Karangasem is the poorest region in Bali? And Karangasem is actually in the east part of Bali, and there is no development at all. There is no
Okay.
tourism. I mean, it's not interested for investor lah. It's mostly still locals there. I mean, like traditional village, and yeah, the job is farming and maybe apa? Fishing. So how would you respond to that? I mean, because of these gentrifications, let's
Yeah.
say, actually Bali becomes alive.
Right.
In Kuta, in Canggu, in Seminyak, even in Ubud, yeah.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the area that is not interested for investors, there is no investment there, it's not being gentrified, they live in the poor situation. How would you respond to that?
Okay, so this rural part are still rural areas, like, but this gentrification has been spreading. So most likely, maybe in the near future, if we don't stop gentrification, it will spread. And if we're talking about development, I think development should be spread equally because development is not negative, it's positive because it gives benefit for the locals. But if eventually, like this Karangasem place, if gentrification eventually spread and Karangasem gentrified, then it's a bad thing. Like, I don't support that. But if development, we're saying the government should play a role on development, developing the whole island so that it's maintained and it's kind of equal and it's equal.
Then shouldn't you say that gentrification should be controlled instead of stopped?
But it should be stopped because with gentrification, this investor are going to have more and more profit and it's gonna hurt the locals. So it should stop and should stop spreading.
Then what's supposed to be the, like I'm having difficulties in differentiating between gentrifications and colonializations and investment. Like are they the same? Are they related? Can you help me to understand that?
Okay, so back again with the definition of gentrification. It talks about where wealthier individuals move into a lower urban neighborhood, which leads into property renovation, increase the property value, and rising the rents. And we can say that gentrification kind of plays a part like colonialization, but not as hard as colonialization. Because with gentrification, when they build investment, they use this local as the worker and just paying them the UMR. And it's not bad, but it's kind of colonizing them in a way because they should have done the job if this investor weren't coming, and they should have like been used traditional practices.
Okay. Okay, I'm done. Thank you. Good job. Thank you. Good job. Good job
Okay,
in
thank you,
answering. Yeah,
Mr.
thank you. I understand more now. Thank you, Nicole.
Just have one more question. I think it's the
Okay.
time's almost up, but and it is sort of an extension of what everyone has been talking about already. There is several students have mentioned already that the path for success for Indonesia, a lot of that is tourism, right? If we
Yeah.
build up the infrastructure for tourism, that's a big money-making future for Indonesia. And there are places like Labuan Bajo and Raja Ampat that are super popular, and they haven't been gentrified in the sense I don't think, that we're pushing locals out. Maybe they have, I don't know.
Okay.
But how do you make that balance? Because tourism is a good thing for Indonesia in a lot of ways, but there's a line between where tourism and tourism development turns into gentrification. Where is that line, and when do you say stop it?
Okay, so first of all, we should say stop when it's already reaching to over tourism because it's not anymore sustainable and stable. So we should balance tourism with locals so that they plays a role in helping the economy growth, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Time's up. Good job, Nicole. Okay, we will meet friends and family, panelists, advisors over here at the banner, at the backdrop for